This video is going to provide a quick review on multiplying, adding, and subtracting fractions. So when we multiply something like 5 times 2 over 15, we start by reducing 5 and 15. 5 is in the numerator, 15 is in the denominator. When we do that, the 5 and the 15 are going to turn into 1/3. From there, when I reduce these, since they're both divisible by 5 and they become 1 over 3, I end up with 1 times 2/3, which is just going to give me 2/3. Now in my next example, what we'll do is cancel the 3's because again, one's in the numerator, one's in the denominator. All we're left with at that point is just 4. Then for number 3, once again, we will go ahead and cancel the 7 and 14. They're both divisible by 7. That's going to make the 7 go away or turn into a 1, no matter how you want to think about it. And then 14 divided by 7 is going to give us 2. So then at that point, all we're left with is really just 1 over 2 or 1 times 1/2. Either way, that's going to give us 1/2. And then from there on number 4, once again, I look at this numerator of 8 and the denominator of 2, and I'm going to look for how they can simplify. They're both divisible by 2. The 8 is going to turn into a 4. The 2 is going to turn into a 1. So then from there, I'm really just left with 4 times -1. And 4 times -1 is going to just give us -4. Now, as we move on to adding and subtracting, the main thing we want to focus on here is that we need to get common denominators. So when we look at number 1, we can see right now that the denominators are 16 and the denominator for 4 would just be a 1. So between 16 and 1, I'm going to go with 16 as my common denominator. Now that denominator is going to end up being the denominator for the fraction with -1 over 16, the fraction that has 4 in it, and then also the answer. Now from here, I have to think about how I'm going to make these denominators that I currently have, which are 16 and 1, turn into the denominators that I have down here. Well, obviously this first one is just going to stay the same, but then I need to think about what I need to multiply the top and bottom by in the second fraction so that that 1 can turn into a 16. Now as we do that, the first fraction stays the same. We leave that as -1, but the second fraction we have to multiply by 16. The only way to make that 1 turn into a 16 is by multiplying by 16. Well, if I do that in the denominator, I also have to do that in the numerator. And when I multiply 4 and 16 together, it's going to give me 64. So we do want to notice that I highlighted here that 4 over 1 is the same thing as 64 over 16. Like if we were to actually divide 64 divided by 16, we would get 4. So these are equivalent to each other. It's just that now that they have the same denominators, we can just work with their numerators. So with the numerators then, we're just going to either add or subtract based on the signs that we're given. So here, I know that my 16 is still going to be the denominator over here, and when I go to do -1 plus 64, I end up getting 63 over 16. And that's my final answer. So we'll do the same thing for this next one. We have to establish our common denominator, which in this case is going to be a 2. Now from there, if I currently have a 1 in the denominator here, I need to multiply that by 2 to make it turn into a 2. So we end up multiplying top and bottom by 2, and we can see here that 5 over 1 is the same thing, because that's 5, as 10 over 2, which is also 5. So since these two things are equivalent, it's okay to change it like that. Now from here, this one stayed the same, and we just do 10 plus -1, which is 9. 9 over 2 doesn't reduce, so that's our answer. Same thing with number 3. We're going to establish common denominators. This time, that common denominator is 7. So once again, the first fraction is going to stay the same. The second fraction needs to multiply top and bottom by 7, and when I do 7 times 3, that's where I'm going to get 21 over 7. Again, it's still just 3, but writing it this way makes it so that these two things can combine. The first fraction is staying exactly the same. From there, we're going to add, since we have addition here, 2 plus 21, which gives us 23. It's over 7. We check to see if it reduces. This one doesn't. That's our final answer. And then for number 4, when I go to get common denominators, this time they're 5. And so once again, I take 2 over 1, and I want to think about what do I need to multiply a 1 by to make it turn into a 5. So from here, I multiply top and bottom by 5, giving me 10 over 5 minus 2/5. And so then from here, we know that our denominator is going to stay at 5. 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 over 5 is our answer. And then finally, which of the lines passes through the point -1/2, comma 2? We're going to just look to see which one gives us a true statement. So as I'm filling things in for number 1, we want to kind of see what happens. Now we have to be careful here. So we've got this plugged in. Our x value is -1/2. Our y value is a 2. Now from here, when I multiply -8 times -1/2, first of all, it's going to be positive. Negative times negative is positive. Then from there, I want to think about what is half of 8, and that's going to be a 4. The other way to think about it is that this 8 and 2 would cancel so that the 8 turns into a 4, and I'm left with 4 times 1. So as we're doing that, we keep the 2. Again, right here we get 4, and then this is going to be minus 2. So then 4 minus 2 is going to give us 2. So 2 is equal to 2. That checks out. So we're saying that that's a true statement, and then because that's a true statement, we can say that yes, it's going to pass through that point. Now then for number 2, when I go to plug in -1/2 and 2, I've got 2 is equal to -8 times 1/2, -1/2, plus 2. So once again, I've got 2 is going to stay the same. A negative times a negative here is going to turn that into a positive. Then the 8 and 2, we're going to think either take half of 8 or what is 8 divided by 2, and that's going to be 4. So we get 4 plus 2 here, and that gives me 2 is equal to 6, which is not a true statement, and that's why this one, it does not pass through. So between options 1 and 2, only 1 is the one that would pass through the point -1/2, comma 2.